The former executive director of the Center for Democratic Development, Ghana, is raising questions about the integrity of the 2016 elections he says will need to be addressed to restore the public's confidence in the electoral system. Addressing the Kruntini Akwemu anniversary lectures on Thursday, Professor Jima Bwedi, who is now executive director of research group Afrobarometer, cited claims by then chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Charlotte Osei, during the 2016 election that the system being used to transmit the election results had been tampered with. Madame Osei, at a news conference on December 8, 2016, blamed the tampering for the delay in the release of the election results.
Electronic results transmission is that it would have enabled us to see the results of all the 29,000 polling stations as recommended by the reform committee we set up after the 2012 elections before we declared the final results. Unfortunately, we've had challenges with our electronic results transmission system. We had reason to believe that the system had been compromised, and so we advised our returning officers at the collation centers to stop using it and revert solely to the manual process. So as we speak, we're still waiting results through the manual process to come in, and we're making efforts to make sure that we see the polling station results before the final declaration. The history of our presidential elections in the Fourth Republic in Ghana have been very close, and because of that closeness, we have a duty to ensure that we take our time, we collate the results properly, we ensure that the process of collation remains as inclusive and as transparent as the process of the elections. We want to assure you that we cannot change the results in any way. We cannot manipulate the results. The results have already been declared on a polling station by polling station basis. All we are doing is picking all those results that have already been declared and putting it together. But in doing that, we must ensure accuracy.
Well, Professor Jima Bwedi says questions of integrity remain in the minds of the public because 2 years after the conduct of the polls, issues of overvoting, voter transfers and manipulation of results are yet to be probed.
Our electoral outcomes and therefore the confidence of Ghanaians in democracy are tarnished by perceived integrity gaps in the Electoral Commission. It is telling to some of us, at least to me, that some 20 months after the 2016 elections, the EC has yet to offer any validation of its claim of overvoting in Asante region, nor has it produced confirmation that its computer servers were compromised, and yet these were claims used to justify the delay in announcing the official results of the presidential polls. Not to mention the jaw-dropping procurement and financial management breaches at the Electoral Commission captured in the Chief Justice's panel, and the Auditor General's citation of double claims by the EC, as well as reports of EC officials being paid as much as 5 million cedis in cash by a political party for the conduct of its internal elections. All of this smacks of a culture of self-service rather than public service.
Now, the former executive director of the Ghana Center for Democratic Development has also challenged the new Electoral Commission leadership to reduce the cost per voter for the country, noting the unjustifiably high per voter cost of Ghana's general elections pegged at $12.03 in 2016 was expensive.
Of Ghana's general elections. So at $12.03 per voter in 2016. Ghana's elections cost more than Nigeria's $9.33 per voter, and Tanzania's $5.16 per voter, and Uganda's $4 per voter. And I dare say that at this price, one day it may literally be impossible for Ghana to hold elections. And so I throw a challenge to the new leadership of the Electoral Commission to reduce the cost of Ghana's election by about half in 2020. Uganda has it, Tanzania has done it, Ghana should be able to do it.
Now, Madam Osei, who presided over the 2016 elections, has since been replaced along with 2 other commissioners. The new EC chairperson is said to be planning a news conference next week to address a number of these lingering issues. But PPP chairman Ni Alote Bruhammond wants the commission to wake up to its responsibility and tackle the pertinent issues in the last elections.
The Electoral Commission has to speed up and work towards addressing these issues. I believe the last IPAC meeting we held, because they had also been tasked by the executive to conduct the referendum for the additional regions, that appears to be their focus, to try and get the registrations going on so that the referendum can take place by December. So, and to allow the election of the district assembly men and women sometime in 2019. So yeah, we need to ensure that we bring this on the forefront so that in the deliberations of the EC, they will consider this as an issue to be considered.
Now, General Secretary of the Opposition National Democratic Congress, Johnson Asiedu Nketia, believes the EC is not showing seriousness in addressing issues of overvoting and compromise of the electronic transmission system raised in the aftermath of the 2016 elections. National organizer of the party, Kofi Adams, joins me on the line now to tell us more about what the party makes of the issues that have come up against the commission. Good evening, Mr. Adams. Hello, good evening to you, Mr. Kofi Adams. Mr. Adams, if you can hear me, your General Secretary is of the opinion that the EC is not being serious about addressing the issues that came up in the 2016 elections. First of all, what do you know, if at all, about the tampering that the former EC chairperson, Charlotte Osei, made reference to in her news conference? Well, unfortunately, we are facing some technical issues. We're trying to reach Mr. Kofi Adams, and when we do reach him, we will bring you that as and when. But we still have on the line with us Dr. Franklin Odro. He is a Senior Research Fellow at CDD Ghana. Many thanks for your time. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening to you, Araba.
So it appears that everybody went to sleep after the 2016 elections. This issue was not raised for 2 years until now. How come it's taken us this long to realize or raise these issues about the 2016 elections, which we understand have not even been gazetted?
Well, first of all, I think this has been the normal practice of the Electoral Commission, and indeed for many stakeholders in the election game since '92. Anytime elections are completed and there is a transition and many of us go to sleep. And that is why for some of us, we argue that some of the mistakes and administrative lapses that we keep repeating, it's because we don't go back to interrogate the lessons learned from the previous elections, what went well, what didn't go well, in order to prevent that. And so it is not really surprising that it's taking 2 years for us to reflect and return to some of the gaps and lapses that we recorded in 2016.
Now, Mr. Odro, hold on to the line for me because we have Kofi Adams, who's a national organizer of the NDC, on the line with us as well. Mr. Adams, good evening to you. I was asking what you know or your party knows, if at all, about the tampering that Madam Charlotte Osei made reference to during her news conference in the 2016 elections as she delivered the results, the outcome of the elections.
So, as I was telling you earlier, for the disruption of the lines, we were very much aware because some of our coalition officers were very vigilant and they spotted these disparities during the collection, where results that are entered into the system, what appears on the screen as totals was completely different from the individual polling station results that they were feeding into the system. So in some of those constituencies, what happened was for them to rely on manual collation of results and forwarding it through the system that they were used to in the past and not the new electronic system. But in constituencies where they went ahead and did the electronic collation, we will be quite sure to say that the issue of the tampering was not resolved. And we have been asking the Electoral Commission to gazette the polling station results to enable us now come out with what we have collected from our individual bank sheets or results declaration sheets that we had from all our polling stations to compare with what it is that they would have gazetted to know whether truly this was the case, the 2016 election results was correct and accurate or wrong. Per our tabulations that we have done, we still challenge the outcome of the 2016 election results. And we are very much convinced that the gap of the results will drastically reduce if the right thing
But
is
Mr.
done.
Adams, has your party made any effort at all, or has it found it necessary to have the issues raised thoroughly investigated?
You would realize that the chairperson of the Electoral Commission herself admitted in the course of the collation of 2016 election. Not long after that, then this battle at the EC started. Whether it was the coincidence or the party that won the election, that they have whatever with the process. They want the EC to look into the matters that they want. That was why the agenda of getting them out was pursued or not. Today, we all the acting. They are out. It is our hope that this matter is thoroughly investigated and all of us are called to appeal the evidence that we have and to make sure that we deal with this matter once and for all so it doesn't repeat itself. Especially that the political party that was accused then is now in power and can have the chance to possibly attempt it.
Well, Mr. Adams, at the time, Madam Charlotte also said that the Commission had decided to abandon the use of the ETS when they realized it had been tampered with. Knowing what we do know today, would you recommend that we do away with the ETS entirely, or there could be still some use for it in the next election?
Of course, we will have to combine the two systems. We will have to make sure the faxing system that have worked for us in the past is used whilst we do the electronic transmission also to enable further verification. So whilst we are doing the electronic transfer of results, we must also do the fax system where physical pink or result declaration sheets, as they were then called in 2012 pink sheets that we all became known, will also be faxed to the Electoral Commission offices, and that would also use in justifying what would have come through the electronic transmission system.
All right. Hold on to the line for me, Mr. Adams. Let me ask that same question to Dr. Odro, Franklin Odro. You had heard the former chairperson of the EC. She says we should abandon the ETS. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think the decision to abandon it was in particular reference to the 2016 election, but not to completely abandon the whole idea. But if you recall, the idea of adopting electronic transmission was something that was not concluded even by IPAC ahead of the 2016 election. There was an attempt to procure a contractor or a service provider. It didn't end. And then all of a sudden, the commission came and said they were still going to employ that technology. But I think the most important thing that we should recognize is that at the same time, the commission did not say that they were going to abandon the electronic, the manual system. And so I do agree with Mr. Adam that it may be prudent for this new commission to revisit that electronic approach, but without necessarily abandoning the manual approach, because there are reasons why the direct transmission of results from the polling station to the center was considered. Because in the past, there are arguments and suggestions and rumors that results get tempered along the transmission line from the polling station to constituency center, to the district, to the region, and to the national. But if you do the direct transmission from the polling station to the headquarters, and then we still look at the manual transmission, it provides us the opportunity to verify the accuracy of the results that have been received at the center. So I think that it may be a prudent decision to consider revisiting that particular approach, but at the same time, not completely abandoning the manual approach to collating the results.
Right. Many thanks for your time. Dr. Franklin Dro, he is a Senior Research Fellow at CDD Ghana.